One common fallacy that affects gamblers, people in relationships, and even governments is something called the sunk loss fallacy. So what is it? Why do people fall into it? And how indeed can it be avoided? Well, when people put money, time, effort into something, they're attached to that thing in a very personal way, which is fairly reasonable. And then, of course, they don't really want to let it go. And when this goes wrong, however, it's sometimes referred to as throwing good money after bad. So we take gambling as a starting point. Say someone is betting on roulette. They're betting on red each time. They've lost 3 times in a row. Now the money that they've spent betting on red has been lost. There's nothing they can do to get that money back again. But with the sunk loss fallacy, the gambler may instead consider that they've invested the money in red, and red is now bound to come up. So if they keep betting on red, they'll get their money back. However, since each spin of the wheel is random and the previous bets don't alter what's going to happen in the future, they are likely to lose all of their new money as they bet, as the odds always favour the house, since on a zero everyone loses except the house. This form of fallacy is relatively easy to see from the outside. It's more difficult with regard to personal relationships. Now, in relationships, while there's often money involved to some degree, investment is really more down to time and emotion. So if we've been with someone for a couple of years, but are starting to think the relationship is rather a poor one, those 2 years of time and emotion have been invested in the relationship are being wasted if you walk away from it. It could be considered as lost. Whereas if you stay in the relationship, invest more of your time and emotion, you could possibly improve it and turn it into a worthwhile relationship. But then, if you've actually spent 2 years already doing that, is spending more effort doing the same thing really going to change anything? Or are you just throwing more of your good time after bad? Part of the reason why people tend to get stuck in the sunk loss fallacy of a bad relationship is they actually have to admit to themselves that a relationship has failed and also was probably never any good in the first place. Admitting this was a failure is actually on your part is actually rather hard. Along with this is the issue of justifying why you didn't walk out a year ago. If the relationship is bad, probably not the first time the person has had doubts about it. So again, you have to admit they've made another mistake by not walking out of a relationship earlier, wasting all that additional time and emotion in a bad relationship. Probably what the key to why people don't leave is the delusion or maybe even the excess of hope that things will suddenly change. With most relationships, the idea that something's going to change is just because you want it to is a fallacy. Real change is only going to happen if both people in the relationship are flexible enough and also want it to change. The final element, which is a dominant factor in sunk loss fallacies, people in a relationship looking backwards rather than forwards. So all that time and emotion the person spent in the relationship is gone. There's nothing you can do to get it back again. All you can decide to do is where you're going to spend your future time and emotion. Are you going to choose a rewarding place to invest that time and emotion or not? So in helping you choose what to do next, ignore the past and then ask yourself, if you were starting from scratch, would you choose this person to start a relationship with? Is being with this person where you want your future to be? Also, walking away from a bad relationship isn't a complete loss. The time and emotional effort you spend in a relationship has made you learn what you don't want from a relationship. That may enable you to make a better one next time. It's important to know that the sunk loss fallacy is a major factor in why some people stay in abusive relationships and why it makes it hard for them to actually leave an abuser. So it's relatively easy to see how an individual human can fall into the sunk loss fallacy. How do governments fall into this trap? Well, you've got to remember that governments are also run by individuals who again are, in theory, also concerned about losing money, even if it isn't theirs. So they've already spent millions propping up a failing industry or planning for a new infrastructure project or something else. At a later stage, they may begin to recognise that the scheme is likely to fail no matter how much more money they put into the project. So, do they cancel it? Well, if they cut funding to the project, they're now guaranteeing a failure. And once it fails, people are likely to ask, why were millions wasted on the project? Rather than actually congratulating the person on not wasting even more money on a doomed project. So there's a temptation again to throw good money after bad, rather than recognise that the initial investment has gone, there's nothing you can do to get it back.